All right, so this week is American Thanksgiving, which is a time for most of us to reflect on all of the things that we're grateful for. And so in this episode of Erudite Magic, I thought it would be interesting if we talked about how to cultivate a spirit of gratitude as it relates to our magic lives. One of the reasons that I actually feel compelled to make this episode is because I know that I'm always sharing with you something new, a new book or a new product, or maybe even a top 10 list. And I don't want to get lost in the weeds of thinking that this is all about acquiring new things. I want to make sure that I drive home the point that we should be grateful for all of the magic that we already experience and give you some tools to help you with that have helped me along my journey. One of the big things that actually got me thinking along these lines this week was that I reorganized my library. You may have noticed behind me here that I now have an additional bookshelf because I was kind of running out of room and having to stack books sideways. Totally inappropriate, I know. But I put together a new bookcase and ended up rearranging my library, which is actually the first way that I think that we can cultivate this spirit of thankfulness. And that is putting our hands on our books. Most of us have some kind of a storage solution where our books are maybe out of reach and rarely do we actually take them off. So as I was going through this exercise of having to empty all of my shelves, put together the new one, move everything over and put everything back, it made me realize how thankful I was for the library that I have had the good fortune to build. And that's my recommendation to you. Put your hands on your books. And of course, that can take many different forms. As you have some time off here coming up on the holidays, that you reorganize your library in a way that suits you now. Maybe your library doesn't actually need to be reorganized, but it can always use a good cleaning and a dusting. Whatever helps you to scan all of your books and recognize all of the entertainment possibilities and knowledge that resides within your library. And of course, if none of these suggestions sound very appealing, you could just take a book or two off of the shelf. Go over, scan the rows, and figure out what maybe you haven't looked at in a while, something that appeals to you right now. Take that off the shelf, and you don't even have to start reading. You can just simply hold the book, flip through the pages, and be inspired by what you see there. No matter what the size of your library is, I'm confident that just being around your books in this way and interacting with them will definitely raise your level of thankfulness. At least it did for me. I also recommend that when you take a book off the shelf and you start to read it, especially right now, just do it for the enjoyment of it. Do it with no expectations of what you might get out of it, or that you need to find a trick that you can add to your act or a sleight that you can learn. Instead, just read the book for the pure enjoyment of it. If you haven't done that in a while, I promise it will be refreshing. Another tool I found that could be helpful for making you thankful for the books and the magic that you already have is to share it with others. No, I'm not saying that you need to loan someone your absolute magic or one of your rare books that you spent a long time acquiring. But what I'm suggesting is that it helps to be thankful when you're actually sharing things with others. And in this case, I'm thinking about a few different ways that we can share what we have. The first is obvious, which is your favorite books or tricks. Share that with other magicians. And I know that this comes naturally whenever we're with other magicians in the context of a convention or a get-together at someone's house or even a club meeting. But on your social media, and you can certainly do it here on Erudite Magic if you don't have a forum where you interact with a lot of other magicians who appreciate books, drop some of your favorite books or tricks and do it just so that others can discover some of the things that you've already found. A particularly nice touch is when we're able to share some of our hidden gems, things that we've uncovered in books, and maybe we feel a little bit protective of those secrets because it's something that we found through our own blood, sweat, and tears. But by sharing that with the magic community, it will help you to feel better about the work that you've put into your magic library. This episode is being sponsored by Don's Magic and Books. I know that personally, I'm very thankful for the relationship that I've been able to form with Don for the last many years. And the reason for that is because Don cares as much about magic books as you and me. Although this is a business for him, he actually cares about these magic books and wants to make sure that some of these older titles that maybe magicians don't need anymore, that they find a place where they can be read and loved in someone else's magic library. And the best part is he does all of this at extremely reasonable prices. I'm always happy to recommend his online store, knowing that you're going to find some treasures there that you weren't expecting, and maybe even an older book that's been fairly difficult to find. Of course, if you're looking for all of the newest books, he has those as well. So no matter what you're looking for, don't hesitate to shop with Don's Magic and Books. I'm going to drop a link down in the description below, so as you do some of your holiday shopping this year, be sure to check out Don's Magic and Books. Another way that we can share things with other magicians isn't so much about these top tricks or top books, but to write an author who's still around to express your thankfulness for them putting pen to paper or getting on their typewriter or word processor, whatever it was, to share the tricks that they've come up with. I've done this a few times, and I know that it's always rewarding to both the giver and the receiver to hear that kind of thanks thanks for putting things into print. As magic book lovers, I know that we wouldn't want people to stop putting their magic into print, and one way we can do that is by encouraging them, not only through our purchases, but also through our words and actions, by letting them know truly how much we appreciate it. The other aspect of sharing isn't so much with magicians, but around this time of year, we often find ourselves in social situations, whether that's hanging out with family and friends, going to parties, whether that's holiday parties or office parties, or even just traveling. These all present unique opportunities to perform some magic for someone. We all have our favorite tricks, things we carry around with us, magic that we know and can perform at a moment's notice with the right props. Set yourself up for success by having some of those props and situations ready so that when you're in these situations, listen to the small voice that's telling you to perform for other people, because you never know how you can impact someone by sharing something that's special to you, something like magic. Let me tell you a little story that I've shared before. I was traveling in Mexico for work, and I had a driver who took me where I needed to go because the streets there are absolutely crazy and there's no way that I could have driven myself. I happened to have a little pocket trick with me, a card trick, nothing fancy, but a memorable piece of magic. When my driver dropped me off, I asked if I could share a little piece of magic with him, something that I like to do on the side, and he said, of course. So I shared this trick with him, and we had a good time, and it was a nice interaction, and I went about the rest of my day. Later that evening, he came to pick me up. Often it was a different driver, but he was still on his shift, and when he picked me up, I got in the car, and he told me that that piece of magic had made his day. He'd been thinking about it all day, and it brought him a lot of joy to be a part of that interaction. Now, up to this moment, I'd never really thought of magic as being something as impactful as that. And I know that sounds silly that I never thought of my magic as being more serious, but it was to me just a moment of entertainment, light fun, something to break the ice and to share something that I liked. But once that driver told me that, I realized that magic can be so much more than that. And in a way, we have an obligation to share these moments of wonder, astonishment, and entertainment with others around us. So during the holiday season, I encourage you, share some magic, and it will help you feel even more grateful for the things that you've learned and the things that this art has given to us and the entire world. Now, the third way that I think that we can create thankfulness in our own lives is to keep and create a list of things that we're thankful for. This could be as simple as a top 5 or a top 10 list of some of your favorite books, tricks, or authors. But regardless of what form it takes, I've talked a lot about keeping a journal. All it takes is an inexpensive journal. You don't have to spend very much on it, but just find a piece of paper that can be dedicated to magic and then start writing down things that you like. I did this recently for a couple of lectures that I was giving, one in India and then one in Columbus, Ohio, and I found it incredibly transformational. I wrote down 10 books that have had an oversized impact on my own magic life, and most importantly, why? What did I learn from those books and what was important about them in my own magical development? And as I started to do that, I started to see patterns emerge about what I liked in magic books, which now inform the books that I will go after in the future, which is not what this episode is about, but it's just a happy little byproduct of creating that gratitude list. The other benefit of this particular exercise is that when you write these things down, later you can revisit older lists because your library is probably going to grow and expand. And of course, you're going to read some of those unread magic books that you haven't gotten to yet. And once that happens, you'll really enjoy going back and looking at the books that made an impact on you when you were younger that maybe aren't in print anymore. Or even if you're writing down why you're thinking about buying a specific book, later you can look back and see if it fulfilled the expectations that you had for it. Another way to get excited and thankful for the books that you have, and this is actually one that I've done, is to go back and watch older episodes about books when I was reviewing them, because most of the time those videos are geared towards informing you whether or not this book might be for you. And if you opted to buy it, sometimes it's fun to go back and get re-hyped about a book that's already on your magic shelf. And it could lead you to doing all three of these things that I've talked about: pulling that book off of your shelf, potentially sharing a trick with either other magicians, lay people that you'll see this holiday season, or maybe even writing to the author to let them know how much you appreciate it. Of course, if all goes well, you might even write it down in your journal, which will help to reinforce everything you've just done. I hope these tips were helpful for you, and I just want to say that I am super thankful for all of you and the community that we've built up here at Erudite Magic around magic books. I'm so fortunate to be a part of this community, and I'm looking forward to what the future holds. As always, my friends, thank you for watching, and until next time, keep reading.